But I want to start the show with an elephant in this room. I want to start the show with an elephant in this room. And we can get into where the elephant in the room actually came from. I love that. Right? Where does the term elephant in the room actually come from? The Trevor Bauer ordeal. So 2 days ago, I was sitting in this chair and Dan Byers said, hey guys, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a video and it's pretty compelling evidence by Trevor Bauer as to his innocence. But it was in the waning moments of the show, if I'm correct in my timing in my brain. And I wanted to see it first and call around and see how the story got flushed out before I made a statement that we made yesterday, which is, man, this dude got railroaded. And it feels like a complete shakedown by his now former accuser, and one where I hadn't seen this before. In the negotiated settlement, he still gets to speak out and provide evidence to kind of clear his name. Had anybody ever heard that ever before? I have not. But in my effort to hear people talking about it on all these TV shows, and it's not like it's not an important time of year for the MLB, and it's not like there haven't been opportunities, or listen to our radio shows. No one's talking about it. No one. That's where the elephant in the room statement kind of comes up, right? We're going to talk about what other people, for whatever reason, are afraid to talk about. Now, I'll be honest with you. If I worked for ESPN, they're a rights holder. They have the World Series on radio. They have the playoffs on radio. And, of course, on TV now, it's on ESPN and on ABC, these wild card play-in series. And you're like, what does that matter? Well, what matters is, leagues leverage themselves or their rights, supposedly, they leverage them, in what you can and can't ask, like a Rob Manfred who was on First Take earlier today. The crazy part about it is MLB will do business with ESPN, ABC, regardless of if Rob Manfred gets asked a tough or even easy question. But what happens is the PR person who sets up the interview, and Jason Stewart, our esteemed producer, knows this because previous to this job, his previous big job was working for Fox Sports. And we all know, like, this is how the business works. You get a big guest and they're like, hey, you can't ask him about. And then you have to make the decision as a show unit or as a company, are we still going to have him on? So I'm sure that when Stephen A. and Mad Dog Russo, who worked for the MLB Network, which is owned by Major League Baseball, when they were getting Rob Manfred on, they said, hey, we're going to have Rob Manfred on. Can't ask him about Trevor Bauer. But here's the challenge. And this is the embarrassing part to me. Stephen A. has said, one, he's a journalist, and two, basically, he's bigger than anything just ESPN, right? He's bigger than it. It is your duty as a journalist to ask a fair but hard question. A fair but hard question. And they didn't ask any of them. And look, I'm only pointing out Stephen A. because he had Manfred on. But this is the problem with guys who are journalists that want to have this journalistic, you want to have it both ways, and it doesn't work that way. Okay? I've made mistakes and I don't have a journalist background. I do know most of the rules. I've made open mistakes about it. But the one thing I will never do for you, the listener or the viewer, when you watch this stuff on any of our social media stuff is, I can't play scared. I played scared in basketball. Scared to miss a shot. So I made it to myself, I'm not going to play scared. I got to play smart, but not play scared. I don't have all the evidence. I don't know all the facts. All I can do is react to what Trevor Bauer has been able to produce, which is crazy in how this appears to be a complete shakedown by a woman who not only has a black heart, hey, but she texted her friends what she was going to do when she was doing it and then provided video after the alleged incident where there wasn't a scratch on her body. And I said this on the podcast yesterday, and I want to say it on the radio show. I was wrong. Now, I don't know what the process should look like in terms of him getting a chance. And that's all Manfred had to say today. Ask me a question, then say, like, look, this is all new information. We're still gathering it. We want to give all of our players a chance to be heard and defend themselves. And then we'll make a determination. But here's another one. Where's the Players Union? What does the MLBPA tell everybody in the world about themselves as a union? It's the most powerful union in all of sports. Well, here's a guy who's been suspended, lost $100 million, lost his contract, lost his name, appears to be able to vindicate himself, or at least, it again appears. These are not provable facts, because I'm sure there may be some other parts to it we don't know. And there hasn't been one word, not a peep. Has anybody said anything from MLBPA? Again, and I don't know Trevor Bauer. This is not me trying to defend him like he's my boy. Like I don't. I had been told for a long time, like, yeah, he's kind of a weird dude. Not a lot of guys like him. Done some weird stuff otherwise. That's fine. But aren't we supposed to be a fair and just society? Aren't we supposed to say what's right and what's wrong? This is wrong. And all of the social justice that we've heard, okay, is about righting the wrong. So granted, okay, most of it is based upon race. Some is about religion, sexual orientation. I understand. But what's going on here? Why are we not being fair to one guy who's trying to clear his name and seems to have the receipts to do so? Bauer, you were the first one to watch the video. You've been doing this a long time.
Oh, is that all right? Yeah.
No, I'm just going to ask you because I truly respect your ability to have an opinion on it. Plus, you're a big baseball fan. You know how all this stuff works. You know about Trevor Bauer. What do you think?
What do I think about what's happening to him, or what's happened to him?
Well, first, when you saw the video, and now that you've read his tweets and his perspective, what are your thoughts on Trevor Bauer, who is currently blackballed from playing Major League Baseball?
Blackballed is a big word. It's a heavy word. I think that Trevor Bauer got screwed in this deal by this woman, obviously. But because of what has happened previously with Trevor Bauer as a baseball player, and you talking about him not being maybe liked by a lot of people, I think that those are two separate issues. And just because Bauer isn't a good guy, or excuse me, Bauer is a victim here, doesn't mean that he's also a good guy and deserves this stuff. So the whole thinking of the Dodgers being like, we want to move on from him, and the players not wanting to have him on the team anymore, I think is more about who Trevor Bauer was as a player as opposed to what he did in his bedroom with another woman. Now, Major League Baseball, putting him on this list, him losing $37 million on his contract, that's a whole other deal. But I do think that it is separate. I think he completely got wronged and screwed over by this girl. But I don't think that the Dodgers, as a clubhouse, were like, we don't want this guy around. I think the management in the front office said, we don't want this guy around because of what he has been attached to.
But it wasn't real.
But he hasn't been convicted of.
He's been convicted in the court of public opinion.
But my point is, the players don't want him around.
Right, but because they thought that's what he did with a woman.
No, well, I don't think that that's entirely true. And that's where I think it's separate, because he said it was a guy. It's maybe he wasn't really well liked in the clubhouse, and they're like, okay, now with this.
No, and for people who don't know, again, the things that we know about publicly, just so we're aware, what we're talking about, there was the weird incident in Cleveland where he had the drone and he cut his hand on the drone, and then he pitched. He had bleeding. It was this time of year, like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, 6 years ago, maybe more than that, where his hand was actually bleeding.
Sure.
But there was nobody really defending him. He's always been a bit of an abstract personality.
Yeah.
And then he had a female agent who I think he was dating at the time, and there was a lot of like, it's not even necessarily a gray area. That's considered a no-no. Okay. But again, like, being blackballed is a vote against allowing someone to be a member of an organization or a group. He's been blackballed. He had a contract. He had that contract essentially null and void based upon this woman's accusations, which appear to be complete bull junk. Fair?
I think that what she did to him was unfair. I think the Dodgers not wanting to be associated with this sort of thing, kinky sex, whatever you want to talk about it, I don't think it's something that the Dodgers are going to put on their media guides or posters at all. I think that they wouldn't want that. There's a reason why. It's like behind the closed doors.
So selective. Why am I forgetting? Bartolo Colon, right? Do you guys remember when Bartolo Colon was with the New York Mets? There was like, all of a sudden, it turned out he had like a second family. And you guys know the story? Like, he literally had a second family, and they found out because like he was in court and he actually defended himself in court against his wife that's a different family that no one knew. He didn't get blackballed, right? It's like people are uncomfortable with this. Like, the only reason we found out about how he likes to have sexual relations with a woman is because this woman made up a story about him beating her up against her own will. And oh yeah, by the way, even the idea of kinky sex, there wasn't a mark on her. Like, the whole thing feels to be like made up.
But didn't he admit to something going down? Yes.
Yeah, he admitted
to doing what she asked him. And also, I also need to interject this.
Yes.
In 2017, there was also an incident when he was a member of the Indians. An Ohio woman made similar accusations that he had assaulted her and choked her out during sex in 2017. I remember when MLB made this decision. At the time they made the decision, I think it was the biggest suspension ever handed to a player for something like this. I remember asking a friend of mine who covers MLB for USA Today, and he said that the decision to suspend him for this long was not just this recent case, that there was something else in the past. So it was kind of a culmination of his behavior over the past 6 to 8 years. So I do need to interject that into that there may have been a pattern that MLB was reacting to here.
I think that's fair. I would also point out that, and again, this is why there'll probably be more information, that if he is innocent of this, but he's willing to put himself out there, that previous accusation, okay, will come even more to light. Like, if you're a woman and you truly think he did you wrong in 2017 and nothing came of it, right? And now he's proclaiming his complete innocence here. That's when they come out of the woodwork, right? Like, no. But we haven't seen any of that yet. That's why we need to take a breath and realize it. My point is, and Dan, you and Jason are absolutely entitled to your opinion, and I feel like that's where there's a gray area kind of talking point about it. The problem is, why are we the only ones having this discussion?
The subject matter is uncomfortable, I think, for a lot of people.
But we have these fake uncomfortable conversations about race and sexual orientation all the time. No, I'm serious. Like, those are being kind of forced. Like, and the reason we're having this uncomfortable conversation is because the accusations, which turned out to be, something she liked or something she was okay with, and it didn't leave a mark on her. Again, per the video. Which I can only think is, and there was more stuff that he put out today where her lawyers had this 2 years ago, had all the information 2 years ago.
Yeah, Elon Musk actually was the person he was responding to, which also leads into why this isn't covered. Like, that kind of wave against Elon Musk and whatever he's into. But I will say this, Doug. The Dodgers and Major League Baseball, I think, were overreacted to protect their brand when they suspended him.
No question. They
had the right to do that.
Yes.
Because of the details of the case. If she made the entire thing up, you still have an employee of yours admitting to slapping around and choking out a woman because she asked him to in bed. And I think for middle America, we live on the coast and we're a little bit more liberal out here. I think for most people, that's just really uncomfortable.
Bro, I got to tell you what happens in people's bedrooms in middle America, in North America, in South America. Okay, it's the percentages are still the same. It ain't like, man, them lib cities, they're having the wild kinky sex, and us here in the Midwest are not. Dude, look at the divorce rates in the South. The stuff is still the same. It's not. We think we like want to protect. Oh my gosh, we got to protect middle America for something. Like, look, it's uncomfortable. It truly is. Okay, but it's really important to talk about that we don't. And I think you talked about this with the Bills punter, right?
Oh yeah. That's a totally separate situation.
No, it's not.
Right?
It's the same in that you're okay to suspend them and remove them from play, and we take a breath and wait till some evidence comes out. Okay, but then when they're exonerated, like, dude, we got to go. Like, hey, that was like the kid wasn't even there. Right?
That's the difference to me, is that he didn't admit to anything. He wasn't even there. So the NFL and the Bills, I think, do owe that kid an apology. I just don't think the MLB or the Dodgers owe Trevor Bauer an apology.
But the point is that we've gone from the pendulum swings so much, right? We've gone from a time probably before we were all working this business. I mean, really, it was, if you remember, when Ray Rice was suspended, right? He was suspended for 2 games for domestic violence. This is before the video came out. Okay? It was the longest suspension in the history of the NFL for domestic violence. Look it up. And then what happened was there was public backlash, and it was 6 games. And then it was 6 games, and the video came out, and like, oi. And he's never played a football game again. So we've gone from a time in society or in covering sports where we didn't talk about any of that stuff. And we didn't cover it. We didn't suspend it. We weren't. To now where we want to be vigilant and react and support and protect women and children and, frankly, any other human being, right? And protect their rights, which is great. But we can't go, it can't be like it's the base of the Me Too movement, where we're so overreactive that people who, granted, I'm hearing you, Dan Byer. I'm not disputing that. All I've heard on the Trevor Bauer is like, that's a different dude, right? And baseball's full of different dudes, but when people say it, you're like, okay, there's a lot more there. Right? He may not be the right messenger, but the message is really simple here. We got to be fair to people. We got to be fair to people. And when evidence exonerates something from somebody who had $100+ million contract, no one's even able to discuss it. That's crazy.
If Trevor Bauer was a 10-year vet on the Dodgers, do you think that they handle it differently?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, like, look, we've seen the Dodgers, and they're in a hard situation here, right? This year, they had that group that was mimicking nuns, right? This year, and then they pulled them and they put them back on, and it was like super uncomfortable. And like you're playing to too many masters, right? You're trying to please, your fans that are liberal. You're trying to prove your baseball fans. You're like, dude. It's not easy. I understand it's not easy. But in this particular case, it appears to which he's, at least on this particular incident, which we can say whatever we want about 2017 or how he's viewed, he's been blackballed from baseball because of this. And I can't believe, I guess I can, that we're not even able, no one else has the desire to talk or ask Major League Baseball questions about it.